Howdy, friends. Welcome back to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Andy Vance, joining you from Lexington, Kentucky, where Alltech is hosting its annual One Symposium. Great to be back in person for the first time since before the troubles, as it were. And joining me is Robbie Walker, who's the Chief Growth Officer for Alltech in Europe. And Robbie, I want to ask you about something I think is really important. You focus a lot on growth, technology, startups in the agriculture space. We've just come through this extended period of time where we couldn't operate normally as a society. What has that done to the pace of innovation in the agriculture space?
Certainly, I think it's changed. I don't think the pace has changed, but I think the scope and how people approach innovation has changed. So before, we had an accelerator in which what we were trying to do is bring people in on this sort of boot camp, as it were. And there are about 50, 60 accelerators in that space. And we fast realized that actually that wasn't really the way to do things. What we wanted to do was actually very quickly get out onto farm, into the field, and run these pilot projects. And then, of course, COVID came and we couldn't do any pilot projects because we couldn't get out on farm. And so a lot of what we were doing initially, which was focused on getting out on farm and practically trying to do things, changed to this situation where we were trying to forward projects and make sure that projects were advancing more in a technical sense. So now COVID's ended and we're back on farm, we're back in industry, and we're rapidly testing these ideas.
You referred to the cultivator, previously the Pearse Lyons Accelerator. For folks who are not familiar with the cultivator, maybe give your elevator speech, if you will, as to what the vision was and is for that part of the Alltech family.
That's a good question, because in the beginning it was really about going out and finding innovative, interesting companies, and over time that's changed. What we're trying to do now is more set of partnerships. So this is about partnership. Alltech has a vision of a planet of plenty, and that vision is about connecting people in the supply chain. It's about making sure that the whole of agriculture, or agri-food actually, is working together to drive the change. And the cultivator is exactly about that. It's about us finding partners out in the market that we can pair with startups, that we can pair with internal innovation, and then go to market with something. So when we do this pilot project, the vision isn't to test to see if the science works so much. The vision is to try and test whether there's a commercial viability, and whether we can work together as a team. You're talking someone in the feed industry, a farmer, Alltech, and a startup, and maybe even two startups, all sort of teaming up to try and bring change, and of course bring some sort of a commercial benefit to each of those parties. So it has changed to that. I guess fail fast is the buzzword, where you go out, you quickly try these ideas, see what needs to be fixed, come back, reiterate. That's what we're trying to do.
There's a broad spectrum of types of businesses and innovations you could be working with when you talk about that whole agri-food value chain. Would you give us some examples of the kinds of projects that the cultivator's involved with currently?
Currently, look, we've got 5 that we're going to be launching today. It spans from robotics through to machine vision, through to artificial intelligence, platforms that consolidate data from all of those different sensors. And then we even have a really new sensor technology from Core Data, for example, which is sort of a small chip that gets implanted into the neck of the animal and measures blood in real time. The one that I might mention is one that vision technology. Phlox is the name of the company. They're based in the UK. And what they do is they can weigh chickens through cameras in real time. But what's interesting about that is that we're not only wanting to work with them on that, we've actually started a project with them and Google to start looking at how we can score TMR, score feathering, score anything really. So, machine and vision can bring a lot of data, and so we're working with them on some of the biggest problems we have. So there's an example of how you can partner with the company externally and then start using them on some of the opportunities and innovations that we have going on inside the company.
I was having a conversation yesterday. Someone talked about that combination of camera technology and AI, and that it's a real game changer for the livestock sector. So hearing that explanation kind of has me excited to learn more about it. that leads me to thinking about trends in the ag tech space. What are the trends that are emerging now, or the trends that maybe are picking up steam post-COVID that had maybe been in the works before all of those changes?
Well, 5 years ago when we started this, it was all about drones, robots, and it was really very much about what's happening on farm. A lot of agronomy. It then moved more into animal. Then over COVID, we noticed that it was a lot more about supply chain, connecting the various players in the supply chain. Now, what we're seeing is this move towards connecting in other industries. So agri-health, agri-real estate, agri-finance. So you're starting to find this trend of connection into other industries, and I think that's where the real magic's going to happen, because you're going to find a lot of new money, new interests, new technologies coming into agriculture, and giving agriculture, I guess, the right position that it deserves in our society.
Let's pretend for a minute that there is a whole pool of innovators, technicians, entrepreneurs out there that are listening to this right now and saying, I'm excited about the future of this agri-food space. What's some advice you would give them, or maybe a hint of, hey, here's an area where you should go and focus your attention because the feed and livestock industry need X?
In our experience, I can answer that quite easily. The biggest area is zooming in on what the customer's challenges are, and the customer can be farmer, it can be industry, it can be food. What is the challenge, and how do we commercially solve that problem? Very often the startups are very focused on the technical aspects. They're technical guys, and they're focusing on how to solve the problem, but not thinking so much about the commercial realities of it. So I'd focus there. And a lot of that is around partnership, because these people are very smart, but they don't necessarily have those connections into industry, and that's kind of the pathway that we're wanting to provide for them. We can connect them into our 128 offices around the world. We have a lot of great customers and partners around the world who need these technologies, so that matchmaking process is exactly what they need. And very often, they come to us talking about funding, but funding actually depends on what their traction is in the marketplace. And so I think the traction in the marketplace, those partnerships are what sort of lead into the funding and the bigger stuff. So yeah, it would be that.
Funding may be the part they think they need, but those partnerships and connections oftentimes are more integral to the success of a startup than quote unquote just the money.
Absolutely. The partnerships are what lead to the money, and normally those partnerships are the money, because those partners then want to invest more. It's not about investing, and a lot of these startups actually don't want to dilute their shareholding. They want to retain some ownership, and so for us, it's not about going out there and just sort of taking lots of bets on lots of companies. It's much more about partnership, and the partnerships need to be real and commercially attractive to both our business, the startup, and then of course our other customers and partners in the supply chain. All of industry is looking to partner, and we're trying to facilitate that.
It's a great way to end it, and a great discussion. Look forward to learning more about future projects through the Pearse Lyons Cultivator. Robbie Walker, Chief Growth Officer for Alltech Europe, one of the speakers and leaders here at the Alltech One Conference in Lexington. For more coverage of the event, you can find all of our interviews at feedstuffs365.com. Until then, from Lexington, I'm Andy Vance for Feedstuffs.